It's safe to say that SCP-096 is easily the most recognized SCP by the general population, the face of the Foundation, if you will. Most people, even if they aren't familiar with the SCP Foundation, have at least seen references, short films, or memes about 096 in the media. For example, but there's something interesting about this, and that is that despite his popularity, not even longtime fans of the SCP Foundation seem to understand how this SCP behaves and where it could have came from. Now, I've been a fan of the SCP Foundation since I was 15 years old. I'm 21 now, and I initially got into it by reading and watching content related to 096 specifically. Canon content straight from the SCP Wikipedia, in addition to short films and theory videos and those kind of things. And you'd be right to assume that this has made 096 my favorite SCP for a long time. So, today, I've decided to create a full character analysis of SCP-096, almost like an iceberg video, only with theories included, where there are missing gaps in the lore. Whether you're a longtime fan of the SCP Foundation or not, you're likely going to learn lots of new things through this video, some of which may shock you, so let's get ready to go down a bit of a rabbit hole. Let's cover the basics first. SCP-096 is an almost 8-foot-tall, hairless, and pale humanoid creature with white eyes, a malnourished build, long limbs, and a jaw that can stretch down 4 times longer than the average humans can. This creature is being hidden away from the rest of the world by an organization called the SCP Foundation, a mortally gray foundation that focuses on containing and studying anomalous beings and objects for the protection of humanity. Now, SCP-096 is usually a docile being, meaning he's relatively harmless and will go along with what others want him to do. Oh, what's that foundation? You want me to live in a giant, cold, steel box in pitch-black darkness with no furniture, entertainment, or company for the rest of my life? Okay. But there's one exception to this. See, whenever somebody looks at SCP-096's face, his behavior takes a complete 180, entering a state of total frenzy before relentlessly hunting that individual down and ruthlessly slaughtering them. To this day, no method has ever been able to stop 096 when he's in this state, and this is because he is unimaginably strong and durable. His skeletal structure proves to be indestructible, and his body is capable of fully recovering from any wound or condition given enough time. He has bested all kinds of other ridiculously powerful SCPs, armies, and the literal sun before, across different canons and storylines of the official SCP Wiki. But this is all where most people get SCP-096 wrong. Let me explain. SCP-096 is incredibly intimidating, and because of the information previously provided, many people assume that he is an aggressive creature who quote-unquote rages when his face is viewed, but this isn't actually accurate. To be blunt and honest with you, only Dr. Dan, SCP-096's original author, knows exactly why 096 attacks people, but it has been canonically proven that it actually isn't something that 096 is doing willingly. If anything, he seems to actually hate physical altercations. This misconception can be cleared up by reading a log in the wiki, that being experiment log T988-16-OC108/682.
What?
I know, overwhelming name, but these logs are simply records from a time when the SCP Foundation tried to exterminate another, more violent and troublesome SCP, that being SCP-682. The Foundation attempted to exterminate 682 by using all kinds of methods, especially the abilities of other SCPs, and this is where 096 gets involved. See, the Foundation was also trying to exterminate 096 at the time, so to them this was the perfect matchup.
Fight! Fight! Fight!
No matter who won and who died, the Foundation would see it as a personal win. So they put 096 in the same room as 682, 682 saw 096's face, and the two had an absolutely brutal brawl that lasted a whole 27 hours. By the end, SCP-682 was found as dead as you could consider it on the floor with 85% of its body mass missing, and 096 was found sobbing in the corner of the cell, also severely wounded but nowhere near as badly as 682. Now, 096 obviously emerged victorious here, but 682 also has staggering regenerative properties, and eventually came back to life and recovered from the altercation.
Well, fuck,
thought the Foundation.
That was an extremely risky, unethical, and futile experiment that didn't get us anywhere, and put two of our anomalies through unimaginable agony and terror. Let's try it again with no changes whatsoever.
And then they did just that, and while it was a stupid decision, what follows next is important. Upon putting 096 in 682's cell a second time, 096 immediately panicked and turned away, jumping in place as he started scratching at his own face, and the two never had a second battle. So, let me simplify the events.
Right, so let's just stop and analyse what's just happened there.
682 saw 096's face, and 096 was triggered by that and killed 682. But the second time they interacted, 096 was absolutely desperate to avoid 682 from seeing his face, clearly because he didn't want to fight again. But here's the thing. If 096 simply acts out of aggression when his face is viewed, he wouldn't have needed to turn away from 682 and attempt to destroy his own face by scratching it up. If it really was 096's free will to attack, then he could have just chose not to attack 682, even if 682 saw his face again. This not only proves that the violent outbursts seen in 096 aren't actually something that he wants to do, but it's not even something that he chooses to do either. It's evident that he's just forced to enter a state of violence when his face is viewed, almost like a curse, and one that can only be lifted once his target is neutralized. 682 coming back to life didn't automatically undo the fact that it saw 096's face, but because 096 had quote-unquote killed it, he was relieved of his triggered state. If this wasn't the case, then 096 would have been stuck in a loop of constantly attacking and killing 682 for eternity, which thankfully didn't happen, further proving the point. But if you want more evidence, let's quickly go over something else. There was a point in time where the Foundation had D-Class, aka Human Disposable Lab Rats, look at an image of 096's face and draw said image. Now, looking at an image or video footage of 096's face in any capacity will trigger it. But through this experiment, the Foundation discovered that a drawing of SCP-096, no matter how accurate or realistic it is, will not trigger 096 whatsoever. Let me clarify. An image where 096's face is completely unreadable and takes up only 4 pixels of the entire thing will trigger 096, but a perfectly accurate drawing will not. 096 does not care if people know what its face looks like. That is not how he works. 096 is triggered into violence when his actual face is viewed, and that's a massive difference from him just getting angry because he doesn't like how people can see him. This also answers the major shifts in his behavior. As mentioned earlier, 096 is almost hilariously docile when left untriggered. He usually spends his time sitting in the corner of his cell, sobbing, and will occasionally even pace around if he's feeling bold that day. He's even just sat there before and just let someone that he doesn't know inject a mysterious fluid into his arm, but that's a story for a little later. Point is, 096 is canonically an extremely gentle and easygoing anomaly who just happens to have a condition that forces his own body into committing terrible acts of violence. So then, what is his deal? Unfortunately, there is much left without answers when it comes to 096, because his author, Dr. Dan, just kind of wrote a few documents in the early 2010s and then dipped off of the face of the earth forever. But that doesn't stop us from being able to pick up the hints that we have been given and use that to construct theories regarding 096's odd condition and potential origins. So, what do we have to work with? Just quickly, there is a common theory within the SCP fandom that SCP-1529, the King of the Mountain, could have been responsible for the creation of SCP-096, and I'll briefly run down why I don't believe this is the case. So, some people believe this theory because SCP-1529 and SCP-096 were both first found on Mount Everest. And the theory goes that 096 was once a human mountaineer who was found by 1529 and cursed to be a monster. SCP-029 has never displayed any ability to curse people or turn people into monsters. SCP-1529 is like the embodiment of hypothermia. He's an entity that lives on Mount Everest and seeks out climbers to give them symptoms of hypothermia before leaving them frozen to death in the snow. That's it. That's kind of all he does. The theory pretty much loses all strength after the fact that 1529 and 096 both come from Mount Everest, so I personally don't give it any consideration. Now, moving on to my own theory. In my opinion, the closest thing we have to an implied origin for 096 is in a tale on the wiki called There is Comfort in Not Seeing, There is Bliss in Not Knowing, written by Dr. Sumerian. This story revolves around SCP-096 being introduced to SCP-049, the Plague Doctor, as the Foundation was hoping that the Plague Doctor could finally be the one to put an end to 096's existence, seeing as he can stop all bodily functions with a single touch. However, this story actually ends up being much less violent and more bittersweet than one would expect. And what we're here to focus on is the fact that we actually see into 096's perception in this story. It's important to note that there are many details and symbolic things in this story that I either could not decipher for the life of me, or isn't too important to my theory, so I highly suggest you read the actual story for more context and share your takeaways in the comments section. I'll link both the tale and its illustrated version in the bio of this video for you guys to check out after, but for now, let's go over the basics of this story. We begin with 096 sobbing alone in a white cell, who is seemingly daydreaming and perceiving himself as a young, injured child huddled by a tall black tree in a surreal, outdoor setting surrounded by hundreds of children who stand there and laugh at him. Then, when the Plague Doctor enters the cell, the children in 096's mind simultaneously disappear, leaving only the two of them together. This is pretty much all I wanted to point out from the story, but for the sake of not leaving you guys on a cliffhanger, the Plague Doctor feels some sort of sympathy for 096 and decides to, rub the top of his head and give him some strange injection to quote-unquote help 096. They also hug and sit together for a while, so that's cute. Aww. Anyways, as I said, I really want to focus on the fact that 096 pictured himself as a human child being bullied by other children, because in the story, he covers his face from them, telling us as readers that he's likely being mocked for his appearance. Now, you could chalk this up to this being how 096 views his life. He just sees himself as this childlike being who gets laughed at and harmed by everyone else, but after thinking about it for more than 3 seconds, this doesn't really make sense. Sure, the Foundation does harm 096 a lot, but they don't actually laugh at his appearance. If anything, they fear it, as they fear 096 as a whole. His face means death. They don't take 096 as a joke, they take him as a serious threat. So then, why are the children laughing in 096's head? I propose that what we're seeing isn't actually how 096 sees the Foundation, but instead memories of 096's past. Think about it. SCP-096 is hinted on his official wiki as being blind, and judging by his eyes, his behavior, and why the hell else would Dr. Dan have even included that detail for no reason, I believe we're safe to assume that he is blind, and that assumption is what this theory is going to go off of. Which leaves us with a very important question. If 096 really is blind, how does he know what things like trees and children look like? There would have had to have been a time where he was not blind, when he was something else. Remember, 096 can recover from any injury or condition, meaning he was always blind as the creature that we know him as. If he could have seen at some point in the past as this beast but was blinded by some sort of incident, he would have recovered his sight already. This means that 096 would have had to have been something else at some point in his life that could see, and it's pretty telling that he sees himself as a human child. See what I'm implying? 096 was almost undeniably human at some point in the past, but that begs so many questions. Who was he? What happened to him? And how did he end up on Mount Everest? Unfortunately, this is where we finally run out of things to go off of, so it's up to us as readers to suggest things that could have happened to explain how 096 was turned into what he is today. If you have any theories or things that you would like to suggest yourself, please feel free to share those in the comment section of this video. To come to today's conclusion, SCP-096 is an SCP that has gone misunderstood for years while simultaneously being one of the SCP Foundation's most popular, as is unfortunately common with most other popular SCPs and characters of the wiki. While 096 remains shrouded in mystery and will likely continue that way for a long time, we can still appreciate the SCP for all of the good stories and content that has come out of his existence, as well as continue to theorize and create our own versions of his origins. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and please subscribe for more horror and SCP-related content on this channel. Also, be sure to comment if you want to see me cover another SCP or an aspect of the SCP Foundation, as I could say a lot about many things in that regard. Alright, have a good day or night. Goodbye!